Certainly a pleasure to be here and to participate in this special occasion. And I'll bet that due to these Hall of Fame events, many of us have dug out more scrapbooks, photo albums, and shoeboxes filled with newspaper clippings, photos, and race programs than perhaps we ever knew existed. But isn't it fun to reminisce? Well, my earliest memory of Homer Drew dates back to the early 60s when Bob Bushley asked him to drive his race car. I remember that vividly because about that time I was a high school kid hanging around Bob Bushley's shop trying to learn what I could from one of the masters. Like many others, I was a little surprised at Bob's choice because I'd only seen this Homer Drew as a rather rough and tumble type driver whose style hadn't yet resulted in a lot of success on the track. Well, time would prove that Bob Bushley had tremendous insight. He had seen something special in that rough and tumble driver. He'd seen a natural with tenacity and awesome talent. That was the beginning of a partnership that would become historic at Beech Ridge and beyond. They began winning and just kept on winning. It's one of the handicaps of being tall. By the mid-60s, Homer was not only driving Bob Bushley's P38, but he was also driving Jerry Seavey's number 22 modified coupe. Double feature wins were not uncommon. In fact, he won 7 double features in one season and set a record by winning 4 feature events in one evening. Homer captured the Beech Ridge Super Modified Championship in 1967 and again in '68, along with the B Modified title. During that time, he virtually dominated both divisions. Not an easy task on the then unique Beech Ridge dirt. One Sunday afternoon in May of '73, Homer won both the A and B features at Beech Ridge, followed those victories with a quick drive up to Oxford Plains, about 50 miles away, where he finished second in the first of 2 100-lap Getty Opens and rounded out the evening by winning the second. If you think about that for a moment, in the afternoon on the Beech Ridge dirt in a super modified and a modified coupe, and then in the evening on the asphalt at Oxford Plains against some of the best New England drivers at the time. What versatility. During an interview, Jerry Seavey once said of Homer, "The biggest thing is he won't quit. Even if he's a lap down, he drives as though he's leading. And if the race is long enough, he will be." Homer has driven just about every type of race car, from the old coupes to modifieds, late models, super modifieds, and sprints, and he's won with them all. A total of 5 championships at Beech Ridge, 3 in the super modifieds, and 2 in the modified coupes. I think we'd all agree that there are athletes whose presence raises the level of competition, and Homer Drew was certainly that type of racer. He became so associated with winning that should his car break down, he would almost always be offered a ride, and the amazing thing was he would take a totally strange car and make it a contender that night. There were a number of occasions when what had been an also-ran car would sit in victory lane for the first time, thanks to Homer. There are a number of unique memories and stories of this driver's talent, but perhaps none more amazing than the infamous story of the vice grips. One night, the steering wheel broke off on the P38 at Beech Ridge. Homer pitted on a restart. In those days, you could pit in the infield. The owner and a couple of the crew members were in the infield. When he pulled in, he handed the steering wheel to Bob Bushley. Bob quickly pulled his vice grips, which were ever present in his pocket, and the two of them clamped the vice grips onto the P38, and Homer Drew went back into competition, steering the car with the help of the vice grips. Unbelievable, but it happened because I was there. Many of you will remember well that by the '70s, Homer was dominating the Getty Opens at Oxford Plains. In '73, he won 5 of 7 100-lap opens against some of the best New England drivers at the time. In fact, he won an open at every track in Maine. We believe he's the only driver to accomplish that. Every now and then we hear someone say that a driver just drove the wheels off the car. Well, Homer could and would do just that. There was the time he started on the front row at Sanea with Tiny Lund and just drove away. No easy task, as many of you remember, to drive away from Tiny Lund. He worked the car so hard through the tricky paved turns that he finally broke the rear end housing loose and the car blew a tire. There were times he would lap the entire field in an open event. Well, I believe Dick Berggren captured the kind of racer Homer Drew was in an article which appeared in the 1974 Stock Car Racing magazine. And I think many of you will probably remember that well. The article is entitled, "Who Said Maine is Conservative?" and was a recap of the first Oxford 250, which in fact, we'll all remember, I think, was a 200. Dick writes, "The outside of the home chute has a serious negative camber, which has been serrated to prevent competitors from running on it and thus off the wall. People who were really running just got the right rear near it and no further. The winner ran his right rear over it. Tiny Lund was real brave and hung both right side wheels over it. Homer Drew had all four wheels over it, driving the pavement like a dirt track." Which brings the story round full tilt to the guy who was fastest and maybe should have won. Homer is the Maine man. He's the spectacular guy who drives anything and wins even if the wheels are falling off. Tonight in his heat, he drew a back spot. With few to qualify, the gas had to be pressed, and Homer was in it when the metal started bending. Back to the rear, then back to the front. 3 wide, 4 wide, he didn't care. But up in the stands they cared as thousands of Maine accents were going, "Get 'em, Homer!" That's H-O-M-A-A-H. He did and qualified easily. In the feature, he was running strongly, picking up cars every lap. My God, he's fast, as somebody in the pits realized. Then crash. Fenders, A-arms, everything on the CV Special was bent. Even Homer couldn't make it go, and that meant nobody could. So they parked it, and they sat there for 70 laps or so. Then someone realized the right front had gone flat. That's why Homer couldn't drive it. It had a flat. They quickly put a tire on, and off he went. And in a few laps, remember he's probably 75 laps down and nowhere in competition, he caught the leader and passed him in a spectacular move. "I knew he was a lap down," said the then leader, George Summers, "but after he passed me, I figured I'd follow him because I knew no one was going to go any faster than him." By the way, the control arms on Drew's car were still bent, and he could hardly walk because his foot was in a partial cast from an earlier injury. Homer's sensational. Thanks, Dick, for so aptly describing Homer's incredible style. Well, time doesn't permit recalling all the many highlights of such an outstanding career, but after attempting to retire in the late 70s, Homer was called on a Friday night in 1980 and asked to drive a late model in Sunday's upcoming AutoWise 100 at Beech Ridge. The owner confessed that his car had not finished better than 11th thus far. Homer said he would come down and try the car on Saturday night. He did and won the feature from the rear. He came back on Sunday, qualified for Sunday's big race, then led 95 of 100 laps to win the AutoWise 100. On the cover of Speedway Scene's next issue, it read, "Out of retirement and back to his winning ways." Well, Homer Drew has been honored by every special award extended by Beech Ridge Motor Speedway. He's one of just 31 to receive the coveted Memorial Blazer Award. He's been inducted into the Beech Ridge Hall of Fame, and in 1999, he was recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. You know, Abe Lincoln once said, if you want to test a man's character, give him power. And I think one could substitute the word popularity for power. Well, popularity never changed Homer Drew. He was always the same. He had time for people, and he didn't forget those who helped him along the way. He had what I think is probably the most important trait for success, and that's a good attitude. I believe that Homer lived the adage, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I'm pleased that many of Homer's family are here to share this special occasion with him. I think a party of 11 came down with him. His immediate family, his wife Debbie, sons Ricky and Gary, his daughter Wanda, and grandson Eric. Unfortunately, daughter Pam is in Alaska and unable to attend. Jerry Seavey is in Florida, but his son Tim and Tim's son are here. And I'm also very pleased that Bob Bushley, the man who jump-started Homer's career, is able to be here with us as well. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to ask Homer Drew to come forward as the first racer from the state of Maine to be inducted into the New England Antique Racers Hall of Fame. Homer?
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to Nia for the induction into the Hall of Fame, and I also like to thank Bruce, which is a very good friend of mine, and like he said, since the early 60s, and thank him for coming up here and for the introduction and taking the time to do it, and his lovely wife, Cindy, and I really appreciate it, Bruce. Thank you. And as I think back as a young fella, about 45 years or so ago, and just starting out wanting to drive, that's all I wanted to do was drive a race car and drive it as fast as I could. And there was a few years there that nothing really happened, and for some reason, as Bruce said, Bob Bushley, the man that really gave me the opportunity to come out here, to get started racing. I don't know what he see in me, but evidently there was something, and so I owe him the thanks for getting me started and what we accomplished over the years, and Jerry Seavey, which he's not here today, as Bruce said, but if it really weren't for those two, that I probably wouldn't be here standing here today, and I really appreciate it. And as Dave Humphrey said a while ago when he first got up there about his trophy ladies there, well, I found my trophy lady at Beechwood Speedway, and I married her. And like Bruce said, we have 4 lovely children and 6 grandchildren that I love dearly. And so I want to thank you all, and thank you.